Well, joining me now is David Jones. He's a former Brexit minister and current Conservative member of the European Scrutiny Select Committee in the Commons. Welcome to you indeed. Where do you think this is heading? I mean, a pretty clear message from Europe that they don't see any room for renegotiation.
Yeah, I think that was always predictable. I think that it was extremely unlikely that the European Union would immediately after the vote say, yes, absolutely, let's open up the withdrawal agreement again, because clearly they don't want to. But the message from the Commons is very clear. There was an enormous majority against the withdrawal agreement just 3 weeks ago. This week we've heard that the Commons are prepared to think in terms of the agreement, provided the backstop is removed. And the EU has got to understand that if it's not removed, then there will be no agreement.
But that is one of the problems that the EU keep highlighting. Some people say removed, some people say revised, some people say the withdrawal agreement can stay as it is, but there can be a legally binding formula alongside the withdrawal agreement. So in that sense, the Europeans are right when they say we still haven't really specified what these alternative arrangements are.
Well, I think that this is what Theresa May is going to have to tell them in the course of the next few days. I mean, the message from the Commons is absolutely clear. It's got to be a legally binding arrangement, which means, of course, rewording the text.
The main text?
Yes, I think that there's no option but to do that, and effectively...
But you see, you know, another Tory MP involved in this, Minister Robert Buckland, he says no, a legally binding codicil alongside could be adequate.
Well, let's see what they offer, but I think that the general feeling in the Commons is that there will have to be a rewording of the agreement in order to make sure that it is binding. There will presumably have to be other changes as well, and they'll have to be negotiated.
Now, bearing in mind that this is a backstop, in other words, if we reach a trade agreement, it won't be necessary at all. Why does this matter so much to people like you?
Well, I think the big problem is that the EU was supposed, according to the text of Article 50, to start immediately talking about the future relationship when they talked about the withdrawal agreement. They refused solidly to discuss the future relationship. They said that they wouldn't discuss that until other matters had been agreed, such as the Irish backstop, money and citizens' rights. So the fact that they were unwilling to discuss it then, I think, makes people very concerned as to the bona fides.
The problem is we accepted that timetable. I mean, David Davis accepted that timetable, much as he may moan about it.
Well, yes, and of course I was one of the critics of that, and I remain critical, but more importantly, a large number of other Conservative MPs remain critical too.
But I mean, don't we have to honour, don't you as a Conservative MP, shouldn't you honour what your government agreed to do on your part?
I think that the important thing is to honour the outcome of the referendum, and the outcome of the referendum is not honoured if we remain in a backstop, which effectively means that part of our country becomes a province of the European Union.
But I mean, the referendum was a clear instruction to the British government, but actually the process of delivering it involves the other party, which is the EU 27. And, you know, you're a law-abiding citizen, there have to be some rules in how that process goes forward, don't there?
Yes, of course, and the rule was Article 50 itself. And of course, Article 50 was deviated from by the European Union, admittedly, as you say, with the agreement of the British government. But nevertheless, I don't believe that it honours Brexit, and I think a lot of my colleagues don't believe that either.
And how worried are you about a hard Brexit in 57 days' time?
Well, like David Davis, I've always taken the view that this is a negotiation that would go to the wire. I think that the European Union is now being rather bellicose in the statement.
I mean, the suggestion is that that's exactly what Angela Merkel now wants. She, you know, wants to settle this in late March.
Well, that may be the case. What was interesting is that yesterday the Polish Prime Minister spoke to Angela Merkel and immediately came out talking in terms of flexibility in the negotiations with the UK, so that may be a straw in the wind.
But you didn't answer my question. How worried are you about a no-deal Brexit in 57 days' time?
Well, it's clearly suboptimal. I mean, what we've always wanted is a free trade agreement. But the fact is that we have to recognise what the people voted for back in 2016, and that was to leave the European Union.
But if it came to it, would you, in the end, vote for any alternative, including Mrs May's deal as it now stands?
Certainly not as it stands. I think that whichever way you look
at it,
the backstop
have your
is a
name
deal
down
breaker.
saying, I took a course of action, with my vote in Parliament that led to a no-deal Brexit. You'll be prepared to do that?
Well, 2 points about that. First of all, we would be honouring the outcome of the referendum. And secondly, no deal, of course, is not, as it's portrayed, crashing out. What it is trading with the EU and World Trade Organization.
So the answer is yes, you're not
yes,
going to vote for this deal in any conditions.
I don't think that we should be overly concerned about WTO terms.